There is an ancient Eastern parable. Perhaps you've heard its name, perhaps it rings a faint bell, but chances are you've never considered it from this angle. On a day when rain hammered the earth, two barefoot monks made their way along a mud-soaked trail. Their path led them to a stream. On the bank stood a young woman in a silk robe, unable to bring herself to cross the waters. The first monk didn't hesitate. He lifted her onto his shoulders, waded through the current, set her down on the far bank, and continued on his way. They walked in silence for hours. The second monk's face had darkened. His unease swelled with every step. Finally, he erupted. "We are men who have renounced worldly contact. How could you even think of touching a woman?" The monk who had carried her stopped. He looked his companion straight in the eyes and spoke a single sentence. "I set her down on the other side of the river hours ago. You're the one still carrying her. Now turn that question on yourself. What is it that you should have left behind on the riverbank but stubbornly insist on hauling across your shoulders? Inside that invisible bundle strapped to your back, it isn't just the cutting words aimed at you. There's also that gnawing unease born from not knowing what tomorrow will bring. There's the guilt over wrong turns you took in the past, that stubborn inner monologue ceaselessly murmuring, 'If only I hadn't chosen that path.' There are the fictions you've invented about how you appear in others' eyes, the silent revolt of never attaining what you deserve, and that helpless rage you feel toward events beyond your reach. The event ended long ago, the person left long ago, the hour has long since passed. Yet you've been dragging that bundle from the muddy bank for miles, for days, even for years through the depths of your mind. This is not a search for an escape route. It is what the ancient sages called mental captivity, a maddening closed loop in which the mind spins endlessly around itself. If you cannot rein in that voice inside your head, that voice seizes the reins, and it erodes you from within, slowly and relentlessly. This is the true source of your exhaustion. It is not your muscles that are spent, it is your soul. The reason you wake up drained before you can even open your eyes, the reason you cannot focus your attention on a single point, the reason you feel the flavor of life slipping away, none of it is because you've overworked your body. It is because of that covert process your brain runs ceaselessly in the background, this chronic act of carrying that siphons your energy and tears you from the now. To be stuck on something is like drinking poison with your own hand and expecting the other person to fall ill. That poison circulates in your veins alone. On this journey, we will set that hidden bundle down. But we won't do it by taking refuge in cheap consolations. We will chart a concrete map for restructuring your mind, for erecting that unshakable emotional distance shield between you and events. The time for struggling to change events has passed. The time has come to transform how you respond to them. We will shut down that courtroom inside your head, silence that merciless judge, and place the helm back in your own hands. But before you step into this transformation, you must summon your will. You must look your mind in the eye and make a covenant. I am the true owner of this mind. Repeat these words silently within yourself or write them down somewhere. The choice is yours. But let this sentence stand as a promise you've made to yourself. Because as Marcus Aurelius reminded us, a person's life is dyed the color of their thoughts. If your thoughts are in chaos, your existence is in disarray. When you purify your thoughts, your life, too, becomes clear. If you're ready, we begin setting down those heavy burdens, one by one. Chapter 1. Stop mourning sorrows that haven't yet knocked on your door. Stop wandering the dark corridors of the future, rehearsing catastrophes that do not yet exist in your mind. This torture you inflict upon yourself by staging unborn nightmares over and over is the cruelest form of violence a person can direct at their own soul. Your mind keeps you in a perpetual state of alarm, convinced it is preparing you for an approaching threat. But this so-called defense reflex, over time, mutates into a corrosive suspicion, a chronic state of vigilance. Endlessly scripting what tomorrow will bring, whether things will go sideways, how the people around you will react, or whether you will lose. This is not precaution. It is a mental collapse. Every time you construct that disaster scenario, your body experiences the stress as though it were happening right now. Your heart rate spikes, your stomach knots, your spirit constricts. In other words, you pay the price, upfront and in full, for an event that hasn't been born and most likely never will be. Just as it is absurd to pay interest on a loan you've never drawn, it is equally absurd to mourn a pain that hasn't appeared on the horizon. Most people experience the pain they fear hundreds of times in their minds, long before that pain even exists, and wear their souls thin doing so. By magnifying the possibility of a breakup in your head, you poison the relationship you have right now. By feeding the nightmare of losing your job, you overshadow today's performance. And yet 90% of the scenarios that rouse your fear never come to pass. The small fraction that does is never as terrifying as the monstrous giant your mind inflated it into. Stop gambling your mental capital on the lottery of possibilities. This is squandering the most priceless asset you hold, the present moment, for a future that will never exist. Ancient wisdom offers a crystal-clear principle on this matter. If a misfortune arrives, you settle accounts with it in that moment, and you overcome it with the strength you possess in that moment. To sacrifice the peace you already have for a problem you don't yet have is foolishness. To grapple with a problem before it emerges is no different from a person who shadowboxes in a dim room, fighting their own shadow until they collapse in exhaustion. The shadow cannot touch you, but while you throw punches at it, you burn through all your strength, and when the real test arrives, you have nothing left to stand on. Seneca diagnosed this tragic human frailty thousands of years ago and left this warning: we suffer more in imagination than in reality. This sentence is the antidote to anxiety and compulsive thought. Refuse to be the audience of those horror films directed by your own mind. You are under no obligation to watch them. You are under no obligation to write those scripts. Right now, at this precise second, the only thing that is concrete in this moment you are breathing is your existence. The future is a curtain of fog. Forcing it open only exhausts your eyes and blurs your vision. When your mind whispers, "What if this happens?" do not answer that whisper. Do not engage it in argument. Because that voice feeds not on logic, but on fear. Say this to that harbinger of catastrophe with an authoritative tone: if it happens, I'll deal with it then. If I must, I'll endure its pain then. If I must, I'll fight then. But not now. Right now I am here, and I will not waste my strength on imaginary adversaries. Do not turn your mind into a junkyard of possibilities, a museum of fears. Your mind is your fortress. Open its gates not to fictions, but only to facts. Chapter 2. Stop trying to tame what is not in your hands. One of the loudest sources of that buzzing in your head is the futile war you wage against the natural course of life. You must abandon that arrogant conviction that you can hold everything, everyone, and every outcome in the palm of your hand. More often than not, at the root of your compulsive thinking lies an obsessive expectation that events must follow the trajectory you've drawn. From the flow of traffic to people's attitudes, from weather conditions to events that have already occurred, you try to repair everything in your mind. As if worrying enough, scripting enough, could somehow bring fate to its knees. But this is no different from the helplessness of someone trying to stop waves with their bare hands. Life does not follow your script, it flows by its own laws. Every second you row against this current, you only drain your own strength, dragging yourself into a dead end of helplessness and rage. The most fundamental and most liberating principle of ancient wisdom is the division of the sphere of control. The teaching of Epictetus is clear. Some things are within our power, and some things are not. It is that simple. Your own thoughts, your own actions, your own intentions, and your own character. These are your soil, your kingdom. But other people's minds, your reputation, the fate of your body, your wealth, and the course of the external world lie entirely outside your jurisdiction. When you attempt to manage these external elements, your mind transforms into the eye of a storm. You cannot control whether someone will love you, whether things will go as planned, or what someone will say to you. When you try to claim these territories, you become a conqueror declaring sovereignty over a geography he has no dominion over, and the laws of nature defeat you every single time. This obsession with control is, in truth, a deep insecurity in disguise. Because you cannot tolerate uncertainty, you scramble to fill every void with mental scenarios, believing, if I account for every possibility, I won't get hurt. But this is a trap. Accounting for every possibility doesn't protect you, It paralyzes you. Picture an archer drawing a bow. How much tension to apply, where to aim, and when to release the arrow. These are his decisions to make. They fall within his domain. But once the arrow leaves his fingers, whether the wind will deflect it or whether the target will shift is no longer under the archer's command. If the archer agonizes after releasing the arrow, if only the wind hadn't blown, that is pure madness. You too must learn to do your part and then surrender the outcome to the river of life. Attach yourself to the process, not to results. The moment you release the elements outside your control, you will feel an enormous weight lift from your shoulders. This is not defeatism, it is a strategic withdrawal. You stop pouring your energy into external conditions you cannot change and redirect it toward the only territory you can change, your own inner world. Stop trying to manage what people think of you. They will think whatever is in their heads. Stop trying to choreograph the future down to the last step. Life will always improvise. You are responsible solely for your own stance, your own responses, and your own virtue. Do not try to load everything onto your back. You are not Atlas, the mythological titan bearing the world on his shoulders. Life continues to flow in its own bed. Your duty is not to oversee everything but to keep yourself upright. Because peace is not born from managing events, it is born from managing your response to them. Chapter 3. Stop searching for a hidden code beneath everything. Aren't you tired of living like a suspicious inspector whose shift never ends inside your own head? When someone doesn't say hello to you, you reflexively spiral into the suspicion, they must be upset with me. When a friend responds late to your message, you draft a mental indictment, so I don't matter to them. You insistently dress the ordinary, unremarkable, and overwhelmingly subtext-free details of life in hidden and elaborate meanings. Instead of accepting events in their naked state, as they are, you plaster layer upon layer of emotional interpretation onto them. This habit turns you into a conspiracy hunter within your own existence. You translate a harmless glance into hostility. You encode a simple act of forgetfulness as deliberate disrespect. When you experience a coincidental mishap, you interpret it as a punishment the universe has assigned to you. This chronic state of analysis is one of the biggest drains on your mental energy. Trying to read people's minds, striving to decode the hidden motive behind every behavior, it is a bottomless swamp. Because more often than not, that hidden motive you're chasing simply doesn't exist. People are far simpler than you think, far more buried in their own troubles. If someone didn't greet you, in all likelihood their mind was somewhere else entirely at that moment, or they simply didn't notice you. If your message went unanswered, perhaps they just couldn't get to their phone. But when you perceive every event as a deliberate move against you or a coded message, the world transforms into a front line where you must remain alert at all times. The ancient thinkers say that the key unlocking peace lies in impartial perception. Marcus Aurelius counsels us to see events in their stripped-down form, to peel away the interpretations we've draped over them and look at them solely as what they are. He insulted me is an interpretation. He said this sentence to me is a fact. The chasm between these two is the very distance between your peace and your anguish. The moment you add your own sensitivity, your anxieties, and your old wounds to reality, you turn that plain event into an unbearable load. Events do not hurt you. The meanings you paste onto events hurt you. You must shed the illusion that you are the center of the universe. The thought, everyone is watching me, everyone is waiting for me to stumble, everyone's every move is connected to me, is a merciless trap your ego has set for you. The truth is this: everyone is so consumed by their own struggle for existence, their own worries, and what to cook for dinner that they are not dwelling on you nearly as much as you imagine. The moment you stop taking people's behavior personally, you gain a tremendous freedom. You are released from the obligation of extracting a clue from every glance, every word, and every silence. Starting today, overturn and smash that conspiracy table inside your mind. Stop trying to decode what's between the lines of events. Because between those lines, more often than not, nothing is written at all. When something remains ambiguous, instead of interpreting it through the darkest possibility, choose the peace of saying, I don't know. Suspicion is a tumor of the mind. Do not feed it. When you begin reading life as a straightforward and plain text, you will notice the dramas diminishing, your connections simplifying, and that phantom weight on your shoulders evaporating. Simplicity is the greatest mental splendor. Do not deprive yourself of it. Chapter 4. Stop waging war on yesterday by saying, if only. Do you know which is the most toxic word that gnaws at your mind, steals your nights, and nails you to where you stand? If only. This single phrase imprisons you in a time period that no longer breathes, a dead zone. You replay a mistake you made in the past, a door you missed, or a sentence that escaped your lips in a fit of anger thousands of times in your mind. You engage in a futile endeavor as though replaying that scene enough times in your head could change its ending. But this is like being dissatisfied with the ending of a movie you've watched and rewinding it to the beginning over and over. No matter how many times you watch it, that character will make that mistake, that sentence will be spoken, and the film will end the same way. The past is a hardened mass of concrete. You cannot change its shape by punching it. The only thing you break is your own bones. Regret is the gravest theft committed against today. While your mind wanders the dark tunnels of the past muttering, if only I hadn't done that, the sun of the present moment beats down on your head, but you cannot feel its warmth. Because while your body is in today, your soul is trapped in yesterday. Every minute you spend wrestling with the past is a minute stolen from the today, in which you could be building your future. To ceaselessly interrogate yourself over old mistakes is to show up every morning for the hearing of a case that has already been concluded. The judge rendered the verdict long ago, the file is closed. But in your own mind, you keep reconvening that court and sentencing yourself to life. Stop inflicting this cruelty upon yourself. You cannot rewrite the past, but you can break the past's dominion over you. Every painful experience you've lived through, every defeat, and every misjudgment is a price already paid. You already paid that price. Now in your hands you hold a wisdom earned in exchange. If you keep whining, "Why did that happen?" you are tossing into the trash the knowledge you purchased at such a steep cost. Instead, look at the past through the eyes of a teacher, not a prison warden. Archive events in your memory not as a file of shame but as a body of experiential data. The day you learn to say, "next time," instead of, "if only," regret yields its seat to understanding. You cannot walk forward with your head turned toward the roads you've left behind. If you try, you'll tumble into the first ditch ahead of you. There is a reason a car's windshield is many times larger than its rearview mirror. Where you are going matters far more than where you came from. Do not drag the past alongside you like a crutch. Read it like a book and shelve it. What is written between those pages is not your identity. It was merely one chapter of your journey. That chapter is closed. Now take the pen in your hand and focus on the virgin page of today. Because life is understood backward but lived forward. Chapter 5. Stop treating your feelings as indisputable facts. One of the most dangerous illusions in your existence is accepting what you feel as unquestionable truths. When you open your eyes in the morning and find yourself unhappy, you decree that your life is going badly. When loneliness descends, you conclude that no one truly loves you. When fear surges, you assume a danger must be approaching. In other words, you operate on the reflex of, "if I feel it, then it must be so." Yet this is the most masterfully crafted illusion your mind plays on you. Your emotions are not the compass of reality. They are merely the temporary reflections of your biochemistry, your hormonal balance, and your nervous system in that moment. The fact that you feel something does not mean that thing exists. Just as a person seeing a mirage in the desert mistakes that water on the horizon for real, you too, under the haze of intense emotions, see dangers that aren't there and inadequacies that don't exist. You must learn to receive your emotions not as commands but as suggestions. When your mind says, "I'm so uneasy right now, so things must be going wrong," this is not a prophecy, it is merely a conditioned response. Think of someone who is terrified of boarding a plane. Their fear is so tangible that their heart pounds as though it will burst from their chest. But their being afraid does not mean the plane will crash. The plane is safe. The only thing in danger is that person's inner equilibrium. You, too, frequently fall into this error in everyday life. You mistake the distress inside you for evidence of an ongoing catastrophe in the outside world. Yet more often than not, the problem is not out there. It is in the color of the lens you happen to be wearing. If you look through the lens of fury, you will see everyone in the world as an enemy. If you look through the lens of sorrow, you will interpret every event as cause for mourning. Ancient wisdom teaches us not to wage war against emotions but to place distance between ourselves and them. Emotions are clouds drifting across the sky. They come, they pass, they change shape, sometimes they bring storms. But you are not the clouds, you are the sky. Clouds are transient, the sky is permanent. If you let yourself be seized and swept away by every emotional cloud that rolls in, you will be tossed about without end. Today you could be the most joyful person in the world, tomorrow the most wretched. This instability erodes your character. A sturdy mind does not immediately bow to the emotion it feels. It greets the emotion at the door like a guest. It listens to what it has to say, but it does not hand over the keys to the house. When you stop reasoning emotionally, you also free yourself from the grip of snap decisions. Most regrets are born when we answer a temporary emotion with a permanent action. Burning bridges when angry, retreating when afraid, making promises you cannot keep when excited. All of these are the invoices of mistaking emotion for truth. Instill this discipline in yourself. When an emotion surges, do not act. Stop. Wait. The chemical lifespan of that emotion is short. When the fog lifts, you will see reality far more clearly. Remember, your feelings may whisper to you what you need in that moment, but they rarely tell you what is true. Facts are fixed. Emotions fluctuate. Do not build your life on foundations that sway. Chapter 6. Stop calculating life like a chess match. You position yourself like a chess grandmaster who engineers every move according to 10 steps ahead. Before taking a single step, you strive to account for every possibility, every risk, every conceivable outcome. You run an infinite algorithm in your mind. If I do this, that will happen. If I say that, this consequence will follow. What if my backup plan collapses too? But this state of excessive calculation does not transform you into a strategic genius. It makes you timid and immobile. This is called analysis paralysis. While searching for the most accurate, most flawless, most error-free move, the clock runs out, and you are defeated before you've even pushed your first piece. Life is not an equation that can be solved on paper. Life is a chaotic, fluid river that never stops changing shape. You stand on the bank, attempting to learn how to swim by measuring the current speed, the depth, and the temperature. But you will never learn to swim without entering the river, without feeling that ice-cold water against your skin. Waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, and the perfect conditions is really just dressing up cowardice in an elegant disguise. You console yourself by saying, "I'm preparing," but in truth, you are merely postponing. Because that flawless plan you've constructed in your mind will inevitably crack the second it touches life's hard ground. No battle strategy survives first contact with the enemy. Life is the same way. Overthinking is action's most relentless adversary. While you search for the very best, someone else has done what is good enough and has long since left you behind. Because a person who acts on a mediocre plan is always one step ahead of a person who sits in their chair with a brilliant one. You are so terrified of making a mistake that you choose doing nothing at all as the safest harbor. But the greatest risk in life is taking no risk at all. Staying motionless is rotting slowly. Stagnant water breeds algae, turns foul, and becomes poison. Flowing water is always pure. Your mind works the same way. When you do not take action, your thoughts begin to putrefy and evolve into obsessions. You must accept this. Making mistakes is not a malfunction in the process, it is the process itself. Making a wrong decision is 1,000 times better than remaining undecided. Because when you make a wrong decision, you at least obtain a result, you gather data, and you correct your course next time. Steering a moving vehicle is easy, but you cannot steer a parked car. Yet there you sit, behind the wheel of a car that hasn't budged, turning the steering wheel left and right, weighing which road is better. Start the engine. Set the wheels turning. You can only see where the road leads by traveling it. Stop reading life like a chessboard. There is no opponent across from you trying to checkmate you. There is only a journey you need to experience. The effort to ensure every step smothers your life force. Show the courage to step into the unknown. Being able to say, "I don't know, but I'll learn along the way," is the most liberating statement in the world. Silence those intricate calculators in your head. Listen to your instincts and simply take that first step. Because life is hidden not in the theories you build inside your mind, but in the sweat you shed on the field. Chapter 7. Stop believing the world owes you something. Hidden at the root of that restlessness endlessly spinning inside your head, that relentless cry of injustice that never subsides, is an extraordinarily dangerous belief. This belief is the delusion that the world is a fair place and that if you are a virtuous person, life is obligated to treat you kindly. You tear yourself apart with questions like, "I never wronged anyone, so why did this happen to me? I work honestly, so why haven't I risen? I gave them my heart, so why did they stab me in the back?" You behave as though you signed a secret contract with life the day you were born. According to this contract, you would follow the rules, act in good faith, and in return you would be rewarded. But I must tell you a bitter truth. Life never ratified any such contract. This expectation exists only inside your mind. Hoping that life won't give you a hard time because you are a good person is like assuming a bull won't charge at you because you're a vegetarian. It is in the bull's nature to charge. What you eat is of no concern to it. Similarly, it is in the world's nature to hold chaos, illness, loss, and endings. These are not personal. When a downpour strikes, you don't protest, "Why me?" Because you know the rain doesn't fall only on the wicked, that it is simply one of nature's mechanisms. But when it comes to personal relationships or professional life, you suddenly forget this law of nature and immediately don the mask of the victim. As long as you read the misfortunes that befall you as invoices the universe has issued to you, or as some special injustice aimed specifically at you, you will never achieve mental tranquility. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself of this. To be astonished that a bad person does bad things is madness. It is like being surprised that a fig tree produces figs. The world contains selfish people, ingrates, and charlatans. They have always existed and always will. That someone lied to you is certainly wrong. But to be surprised by it, to stew over it for days, to keep dissolving yourself with, "How could they do this to me?" that is your error. You imagine the world as it ought to be, not as it is. The world as it ought to be is a utopia. The world as it is reality. And you suffer because you do not live in a utopia. The chasm between your expectations and reality is your disappointment itself. When you abandon the belief that the world owes you justice or happiness, an enormous creditor's burden lifts from your shoulders. You stop being that miserable creditor who stands perpetually at life's door with invoices in hand, grumbling, "Give me what I'm owed." This acceptance does not mean passivity or surrender to wrongdoing. On the contrary, it is an awakening. From now on, you practice goodness, integrity, and diligence not because you expect a reward, but because they are the necessary expression of your own character. Goodness performed without expecting anything in return is never disappointed. Effort unattached to outcomes does not buckle, even when met with ingratitude. Starting today, shatter that scale of justice inside your mind. No one owes you anything, not your loved ones, not your circle, not the cosmos. Stop labeling the bad things that happen to you as punishments and the good things as rewards. They are simply events. Focus on how you will stand in the midst of them. The question, "Why me?" turns you into a victim. The question, "What do I do now?" turns you into a hero. When you stop seeking justice on the outside and begin building it within your own conduct, you will discover that the world's chaos cannot touch you. Transform the sense of justice inside you from a demand you make of the world into an expectation you hold of yourself. Chapter 8. Stop seeing uncertainty as an enemy. One of the most ancient sources of the unrest deep within your mind is that deeply rooted intolerance you harbor toward the unknown. You want the answer to everything immediately, this very second, this very breath. What will happen tomorrow? Where does this road end? Will this choice make me happy? You refuse to take a single step without receiving the answers to these questions in advance. You behave as though life is obligated to present you with a notarized certificate of guarantee. But life's native language is uncertainty. And you read this uncertainty as a threat, an adversary, a herald of approaching disaster. The phrase, "I don't know," represents a terrifying void to you. Yet that void is not a chasm to be feared. It is the one and only soil from which all possibilities and discoveries sprout. Your pursuit of security severs you from life and imprisons you inside a sterile glass dome. The same route every day, the same meals, guaranteed but soulless careers, superficial bonds that carry no risk. All of these are the defensive walls you've built to flee from uncertainty. But while these walls protect you from danger, they also protect you from life itself. Surprises, wonders, and discoveries, all of them are hidden in the unknown beyond that wall. By striving to predict everything in advance, you kill life's incomparable suspense. Imagine knowing the ending of a film before it starts. What excitement would be left in watching it? What makes life worth living is the fact that you cannot predict what you will face in the next scene. Picture yourself in a pitch-black room. You'd be frightened, wouldn't you? But the cause of your fear is not that there is a creature in the room. It is that you cannot make out what is in the room. The moment the light is switched on, the fear ends. Your reckoning with life is exactly like this. You want to switch on the light of the future, to illuminate every detail, but the switch is not in your hands. Instead of panicking when you cannot see ahead, you must learn to walk in the dark. Your eyes must adjust to the darkness. A person who can dance with uncertainty, who can coexist with questions whose answers they do not know, who can say, "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, and that's not a problem," that person is invincible. Because there is no unknown left to frighten them, they have accepted that the unknown is part of life's very fabric. You keep searching for a map. You want a definitive travel guide that says, "Turn here, turn there, arrive at the destination." But life doesn't give you a map. Life gives you only a compass. A compass doesn't show the path, it only shows the direction. You cannot see on a map the stream, the mountain, or the storm that will appear before you. When you face them, you decide what to do in that moment. When you stop searching for a map and begin trusting the compass, uncertainty ceases to be a terror that paralyzes you. It becomes merely a curtain of fog to be passed through. Starting today, sign a peace treaty with the sentence, "I don't know." When someone asks about your future, when you're stuck at a crossroads of decision, silence that inner pressure to find an answer. Uncertainty does not mean things are heading for the worst, it only means they have not yet taken shape. And the most beautiful part is this: a future that has not yet taken shape is like raw clay waiting to be molded by your hand. The pursuit of certainty calcifies the mind, freezes it, and makes it brittle. Tolerating uncertainty stretches the mind, strengthens it, and sets it free. Let tomorrow be foggy. You are strong enough to walk through the fog. Chapter 9. Stop striving to be flawless. The name of that invisible yet ton-heavy armor you carry on your back is perfectionism. You mistake this armor for a shield that protects you from criticism, mistakes, and getting hurt. But that armor is so heavy it prevents you from moving, from breathing, and from truly tasting life. The relentless standards you impose on yourself drive you not toward success but toward burnout. When you undertake something, you either demand the pinnacle or you don't touch it at all. This all-or-nothing mentality turns you into the executioner of your own potential. Because you expect a spotless beginning, a spotless process, and a spotless finale, most of the time you don't even have the heart to start. Perfectionism is not actually about having high standards. It is about being petrified of making mistakes. Take a look at nature. In nature you will find no perfectly straight line, no flawless circle, no unblemished leaf. Trees are crooked and gnarled. Mountains are rugged. Streams meander in winding curves. Nature is magnificent precisely with its imperfections and the order that resides within chaos. Yet you, as a human being, try to operate with the precision of a machine. You forbid yourself from erring, from stumbling, from talking nonsense. You are so merciless toward yourself that at the slightest blemish you tear up the entire painting and toss it in the trash. But a sterile, spotless, error-free life is an unlived life. A porcelain plate sitting untouched in a display case may look flawless, but it serves no purpose. A plate whose edges are chipped, whose surface is scratched, but which has served crowded tables for years, that plate has a history. You are not a store mannequin. You are a being meant to get dirty, worn, and weathered in the thick of life. The desire for perfection is actually a mask for procrastination. You don't start your project because you fear it won't be brilliant enough. You don't step into a relationship because you cannot stomach the risk of getting hurt. You console yourself by saying, "I'm not ready yet." But in truth, you will never reach that state of fully ready that exists in your head. There is no perfect moment. There are no perfect conditions. That smoothness you're waiting for is nothing more than a mirage your mind has fabricated. Progress means being willing to wade into the mud, to fall and get back up, to let your clothes get dirty. Watch a baby learning to walk. It topples over hundreds of times, but it never says, "This isn't for me, I quit." Falling is not a malfunction in the process, it is the very process itself. Give yourself back the freedom to make mistakes, even the right to be ridiculous. Shake hands with the concept of good enough. Doing something imperfectly is, under all circumstances, superior to not doing it at all. Let your drafts be terrible, let your first attempt be a fiasco, let your speech falter. All of these are acceptable. The only thing that is unacceptable is never trying out of fear. Perfectionism is a trick your ego plays on you. It is a childhood defense that says, "If I'm flawless, no one can criticize me." But you've grown up now. Don't fear being judged, fear standing still. Starting today, take off that heavy armor and embrace the lightness of being human. Making mistakes is the signature of being human. Chasing a spotless life is never living at all. Let there be erasure marks, scribbles, and corrections in your life. These document not your incompetence but your courage and your effort. Perfection belongs to the dead and to statues. You are alive. So, like everything that lives, relish being incomplete, cracked, and in need of growth. Chapter 10. Stop seating yourself in the judge's chair. Inside your mind sits an impatient, irritable judge lying in ambush with a massive stamp in hand. Throughout the day, this judge instantly slaps a label on every event you encounter, every word you hear, every situation you experience. This is good, this is bad, this is a disaster, this is magnificent. The moment something happens, before you've even seen where the outcome will lead, you deliver the verdict and close the file. When you're stuck in traffic, you reflexively declare, "What a terrible situation." When an interview ends unfavorably, you immediately stamp yourself with, "I'm inadequate." This very reflex, ceaselessly judging and classifying events instead of evaluating them as neutral data, is one of the primary triggers of your mental exhaustion. Because the second you call something bad, your body and mind begin to experience the tension that badness brings. Yet the event is simply an event. You are the one who pinned the adjective bad onto it. One of the deepest teachings of ancient wisdom is this: it is not events that hurt us, but our judgments about events. An event itself does not possess the power to cause you pain. What causes your pain is the response you give to it and the associations you load onto it. Rain falling outside is merely a physical meteorological phenomenon. It is wet, it consists of water droplets. But when you say, "The weather is terrible, my day is ruined," you turn the rain into an enemy. When you remove the judgment, what remains is the situation itself. Saying, "It's raining," is an observation, and it causes no pain. Saying, "Damn it, it's raining," is a verdict, and it creates suffering. That fine line between the two is the boundary that determines your inner peace. You cannot see the entirety of life, the full scope of that immense canvas. You see only a tiny square of the present moment, a single scene. Just as it would be absurd to watch only 5 seconds of a film and declare the entire film dreadful, it is equally irrational to look at a momentary hardship in your life and pronounce, "Everything is sinking." An event you brand as a catastrophe today may be the very savior that shields you from a far heavier defeat 6 months from now. The flight you missed that day may have kept you from a destination you were never meant to reach. Being laid off may be the necessary thrust you needed to launch your own venture. You must stop passing judgment on a story whose ending you do not know. Rise from that judge's chair and settle into the plain seat of an observer. Before calling events good or bad, learn to simply say, "It happened." When your mind attempts to rebel against something, to protest it, direct this question at it. Can I know with 100% certainty that this is harmful, that in the long run it will damage me? The answer will be no, every single time. Within the infinite complexity of the universe, you cannot determine what is a blessing and what is a curse through that narrow lens. Therefore, instead of resisting the flow and assigning a grade to everything, choose to watch with judgment-free acceptance. This is not a passive stance. On the contrary, it is a strategic conservation of energy so you don't waste it. When you call something bad, your mind shuts down, shifts to defense mode, and cannot generate solutions. But when you observe without judgment, your mind stays open. It scans the situation and says, "Now, with the materials I have in hand, what can I build?" Instead of judging the stones life hurls at you and resenting them, focus on what you can raise with those stones. When you stop labeling, the frightening masks draped over events fall away, and life stands before you in all its plainness. When judgment ends, so does the war. Chapter 11. Stop acting as though you'll live forever. Do you know what the true source of that buzzing in your head, those relentless anxieties and obsessions, really is? It is your assumption that your time is inexhaustible. You live as though you will never die, as though an unlimited line of credit lies before you, waiting to be spent. This is why you grant yourself the luxury of hammering a cruel word someone said to you into your mind for days on end. This is why you give yourself the right to sacrifice tonight's sleep over a possibility that may occur next year. Because somewhere in your subconscious, you are banking on the abundance of time. Yet the heaviest waste in your life is not spending money, it is spending time on worry. You can earn money back, but the hours and days you've burned to ash with anxiety, you can never recover. Think of that enormous problem currently gnawing at your brain, shrinking your world. Then fast forward your mind 100 years. Looking back from that point, the event you grieve over today, the person you're clashing with, the opportunity you missed, none of it will hold even a speck of dust's worth of significance. Cemeteries are filled with people who said, "If this doesn't work out, I'll die," and "How could they do this to me?" as they destroyed themselves. But right now, none of those troubles exist. They have all dissolved into silence. You, too, will dissolve into that silence. This is not a bleak picture. Quite the opposite, it is a liberating truth. Remembering that you are finite shrinks your troubles. It forces you to ask, since I'm going to go, why should I spend this brief time running the poison factory inside my mind? Seneca put it this way, it is not that life is short, it is that we make it short. You are not living life, you are spending life by thinking about it. Through mental rumination, between the regrets of the past and the fears of the future, you are killing the present. Every minute you devote to anger, jealousy, and anxiety is a slice you cut from your lifespan with your own hands. No one lying on their deathbed has ever said, "I wish I'd been angrier at that person that day," or "I wish I'd dwelled on that problem a little more." Everyone has only one regret, "I wish I could have savored the moment instead of worrying so much." Do not save this regret for your final breath. Realize it now. Stop taking yourself so seriously. Within the vast flow of the universe, your worries, your ego, and your fears do not amount to even a grain of sand. Let this not frighten you. Let it relieve you. There is no need to bend and contort yourself for someone's approval, no need to tremble in terror over making a mistake. Because the stage lights will not burn forever. The curtain will fall and the play will end. So while you are still on the stage, play your role not with anxiety but with passion. Starting today, whenever an obsession latches onto your mind, ask yourself that jolting question. Is this thing I'm fretting over right now worth spending the remaining days of my life on? The answer will almost always be no. Remembering death, memento mori, is the art of loving life. The existence of the end is what makes the journey precious. You do not have forever. So stop turning your mind into a landfill and focus simply on living. Because this breath you are taking will never come again. Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the will itself, the will that observes, filters, and directs those thoughts. Now go and honor that will. Let this final word from Seneca serve as the closing seal that captures the spirit of this journey. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which depends on tomorrow and wastes today.